It's witchcraft.
Hey, it's 4:20 a.m. Hi, and welcome to episode 58 of the Stoned Witches Hour. If you've been a long-time listener, welcome back. Grab a packed bong from the table and settle in for a spooky good time. If you're new here, welcome to our witchy corner where two best friends tell each other spine-tingling paranormal tales from across the USA while smoking enough of the finest THC-dripping cannabis to kill a rhino. Sucked back into the ghostly vortex that is Chicago, Illinois yet again, I'm Layla.
And I'm Chelle, and I'm heading back to the East Coast. Illinois is too scary for me. I've had enough of it. So I'm going back to the East Coast, which is the ghosty coast.
I didn't mean to go to Illinois. I really didn't. I fully intended to stay as far away from that state as possible. And yet the story I started reading pulled me right back in.
There's some sort of correspondence there that we're going to have to discuss on a different episode.
It's a ghostly vortex or something. I'm not sure, but here we are. So I'll be talking about a woman who solved her own murder from beyond the grave.
And I'm going to talk about a super haunted place that everybody knows of, but nobody thinks about as haunted.
Really? Ooh, I'm trying to think of all the super haunted East Coast places. What is it, Chelle?
I'm gonna give you a clue. The clue is the nation's capital. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, DC has so many haunted places. I've heard lots of rumors of different ghosties and things that go around there. What have you got?
The one haunted place no one likes to talk about, the White House.
Really? The White House itself is haunted.
Believe it or not. Actually, I didn't realize. I guess I should have. It's not like it's not been around forever. But yeah, there's some people wandering the halls there. There's stuff going on.
Nice. And I know there's some people that have smoked some pretty good weed on the roof of that White House. Let's see. Willie Nelson, Snoop Dogg. I think even Woody Harrelson.
America's first president, George Washington, the founder of our land, was a pipe smoker like Chelle.
I think he was also a pot farmer. And the Declaration of Independence is written on hemp paper.
Well, we're not going to smoke the Declaration of Independence.
Oh, no. But just to show that weed has been around just as long as witches and
White Houses.
And White Houses in this country. So, hey, it's a national weed story.
So, yeah, we're going to talk about some of the ghosty ghosts at the White House. You know, it makes me want to actually go to the White House. Weird.
I've been to the White House. I was actually on a tour of the White House back in the Obama era.
Okay, did you see a ghost?
I didn't see any ghosts.
Because I'm going to tell you right now, I got a story of the Obamas.
I did get yelled at by a security guard for sitting on a chair.
Shocking. Shocking.
Whoops. Oopsie. National security incident. Layla sat on a chair. Nope, didn't see any ghosts, but it was a tour and there were a lot of people there. And we did move through pretty quickly. Lots of history there. Beautiful. I saw a picture of Princess Diana dancing with John Travolta. So that was fun.
I did go on a tour of the White House when I was a teenager. We've all shared common trauma stories of vacations with my father. This was a vacation with my father where we got to skip the line. We got kind of backdoor clearance and got to go where normal public people didn't get to go. But at the time, I was a teenager and I wasn't looking for ghosts. And now my adult self, I just want to wander that place. I just want to wander around.
Wouldn't that be a flashlight tour to end all flashlight tours? An evening flashlight ghost tour at the White House.
Now, we're going to have an election coming up in a year and a half. If you are running for president, whoever you are, I don't care who you are, if you start doing ghost light tours at the White House, I will vote for you.
You've got Chelle's vote.
Because what a better moneymaker than bringing people into the White House for overnight tours. I mean, realistically, they're only in one bedroom sleeping or a couple bedrooms if they have kids. Let us wander the rest of the building.
I think you've just solved our deficit problem, Chelle.
I'm telling you, ghost tours at the White House. It should be a thing. Somebody running for political office needs to put that on their ticket. Where's Bernie Sanders when you need him? He'd do ghost tours.
I bet you Bernie Sanders would probably do ghost tours. I'd go on that tour.
Bernie Sanders would go on the tour with you.
I was trying to look up a list of who smoked weed in the White House.
You said Woody Harrelson?
Woody Harrelson, I think, said he smoked there. Supposedly, rumor has it that JFK smoked weed there with Marilyn Monroe.
I wouldn't doubt it, to be honest. They were probably doing some bad stuff in the Red Room.
There's a Red Room in the White House.
Not that kind of Red Room.
Well, on that note,
what kind of weed are you smoking today? Not in the White House.
Yeah, I am not smoking my weed with any of the president's children in the White House, sadly. But today I am smoking some pineapple kush, which is about an 18% THC.
Interesting.
Middle of the road. It's got a nice flavor, good high. I wouldn't say it's anything exceptional, but it tastes nice and green, a little sweet. The smoke hits nicely. It's not too harsh. It's got a nice mellow smoke. And like I said, middle of the road high, kind of nice. Very indica heavy. You know, that kush has a nice indica, keep me in the couch kind of stone.
Well, I'm kind of smoking friend weed today.
Oh, I love friend weed. Does this friend weed have a name?
No, it don't. But what I have done with it, I've been using this grinder for quite some time now. And every so often I pluck some of the keef off it. So I did a half a bowl of friend weed, and then I capped off the other half with the keef. And that keef is everything from Endgame, Pineapple Express, White Widow, like that. This is a salad of keef. And so I got half a bowl of friend weed with a half a bowl of keef on top.
Nice. I love saving the keef and being able to use that later. But a nice little keef salad, perfect topper for a bowl.
It's very nice. I'm very happy and chatty, but my eyes are heavy. I will say that.
Who doesn't love the freaking keef? Man, so good. So tasty. Such a nice little boost for any bowl.
And, honestly, it kind of gives you that cough to get off. Not that you're like going to cough out a lung, but that just a good cough. It gives you the good cough.
Yeah, it's the good cough. It's that good cough. Makes you a little higher, makes everything a little warm and fuzzy.
We were so technical with our weed talk last week that I just had to go like on the down low this week with the weed.
Yep, nothing fancy. We went overboard with the weed talk last week. But I am nice and mellow and high and ready to talk about ghosties and scary things. And you've got ghosts in the White House, and I am intrigued.
I guess I should have known, but it never dawned on me. This place is like a plethora of like people.
Oh, really?
Actually, it's a plethora of some old presidents, some old administrators, some former presidential pets.
There's presidential pet ghosts in the White House?
There is.
Wow.
Now, you know how we've talked about in the past, around the mid to later 1800s, spirit circles, seances, Ouija boards, spiritualist type things of that nature were relatively popular.
Oh, yeah, that spiritualist movement was huge then.
Right. So around 1862, 1863, Mary Todd Lincoln, you know her, she was grieving her son Willie's death. And she began to participate in spirit circles and seances in the Red Room of the White House, and also in the presidential cottage at the Soldiers' Home. Because spiritualism was so widely popular at that time, a lot of the Civil War families did seek comfort in these seances and such. So Mary Todd Lincoln would have these seance parties in the Red Room.
Wow. Can you imagine going to a seance in the
White
House?
Imagine proposing that event idea today.
Yes, Mary Todd Lincoln, would you perhaps like to fuck around and find out with a Ouija board in the Red Room today?
Absolutely. Let me get that on the calendar. I swear if I was the president or the president's wife, seances would be brought back to the White House pronto.
Well, wasn't Reagan's wife, wasn't Nancy Reagan like huge into psychics?
We're getting there. Shush.
Oh, wait, sorry.
So Mary Todd Lincoln was trying to get her son into the White House all the time. But, because she was having these parties, so to say, I'll call them parties, they obviously were like distraught women.
Yeah, she was so broken up over this. This was
Right.
this was a desperate woman trying very hard to get a hold of her deceased child.
But it was also a bunch of affluential Civil War wives trying to get a hold of their husbands, their sons, their
Yeah.
fathers. So imagine a room of all these women trying to pull in all these loved ones. And some of them kind of stuck around. The digs were nice.
Yeah, that's a lot of energy to have in a space.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of it never left. There are other ones. In 1901 began the Lincoln sightings.
No shit, top hat and all.
Top hat and all.
Oh, wow.
There was a man between 1901 and 1904 named Jeremiah Jerry Smith, and he was working at the White House under the Ulysses S. Grant administration as a footman. Became a butler, a cook, a doorman, and then listen to this job. He became the official duster.
Duster?
Dust, like dusting your knickknacks,
Yeah.
getting the stuff. That was his job.
Oh,
He was
wow,
the
cool.
official duster. But so Jeremiah Jerry Smith, between 1901 and 1904, claims to have seen not only Lincoln, but he said he saw Grant and McKinley, as well as several first ladies roaming the halls while he was dusting. He even said that Mary Todd Lincoln came up to him one day and told him that he didn't quite get one of the busts fully dusted.
Well, I guess that answers the question I was about to ask. I was going to ask if these were like the tape recording ghosts, where because of all the intense energies and emotions that I imagine would go into running the country, I would think that that would leave recordings of people as they walk down the hallway, especially in such a huge stone building. But those ghosts don't interact with people. Those are just basically recorded video, essentially. Whereas if she's saying you missed a spot on a bust in another room, that's an interactive ghost. So that's a little different.
Yeah, interactive. That's not like scenes playing over. Like these ghosts, some
Right.
of these ghosts are actually like present day
Oh,
interactive.
wow.
So this is another weird one, because there's a lot of weird ghosts there. In 1911, they had a spirit of an unidentified 15-year-old boy that they call the Thing.
Well, that's a terrible name to give to a kid.
I know, but apparently the Thing was really frightening some of President Taft's domestic staff. And they even had their military aide, one of the top military aides, Archibald Butt, wrote a letter to a family member and said, the ghost, it seems, is a young boy about 14 to 15 years old. And they say that the first knowledge one has of the presence of Thing is slight pressure on the shoulder, as if someone were leaning over your shoulder to see what you might be doing. But people have seen Abraham Lincoln. He appears obviously in the Lincoln bedroom, as well as the Yellow Oval Room. People who have seen Lincoln, check this out. Winston Churchill, like the Churchill, claims to have seen Lincoln in the Lincoln bedroom.
Winston Churchill himself said he saw
Himself.
the ghost
Of
of Lincoln.
Yes.
Wow. In the Lincoln bedroom.
Yes. And also, you know how I'm bad with pronouncing names, so forgive me ahead of time. Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands
That sounds about right.
claims to have seen Lincoln. And the First Lady, Grace Coolidge, also claimed to see Lincoln. Now, the Lincoln bedroom, as we know it now, that back during Lincoln's presidency was actually his office.
Oh, okay.
So during his presidency, that was his office, but present day, it is called the Lincoln
The
bedroom.
Lincoln bedroom. But it was his office. Interesting.
The Grant administration in the 1870s, they also claimed to have seen Willie Lincoln, and Willie Lincoln was the son that Mary Todd Lincoln was grieving.
I see. I see. He was 12 and he died of typhoid fever. And Tad died at age 18 from pneumonia, congestive heart failure, or tuberculosis. They had 4 sons.
It did say that she was grieving Willie specifically.
Let's see, Eddie died at 4 of tuberculosis. And then Willie died at 12 of typhoid.
And they all died before Lincoln, right?
Let's see. I know that Willie died while Lincoln was president.
Like 1872, maybe?
Yeah, they all died before he died. Well, his oldest son lived till 1926. So he outlived him, but the other three boys all died young. 1850, 1862, and 1871.
Nobody says anything about the other two. You only see mention of Willie.
Yeah, I think he's the one that died while Lincoln was president. So maybe that's why. And then Tad didn't die until 1871. So she was probably doing all the spiritual stuff like right after Willie died while Lincoln was in office.
And living in the White House. Now, people say that they see Andrew Jackson lying in his bed in the Queen's bedroom,
That's creepy.
which is also called the Rose Room, and that you can hear him let out a guttural laugh that's been heard in the White House since the 1860s. Even Mary Todd Lincoln has claimed to have heard Jackson stomping and swearing.
No shit.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a fun ghost. I mean, that's kind of interesting.
People have heard Thomas Jefferson playing his violin in the Yellow Oval Room.
Oh, that's nice. Much better than telling someone they missed a spot while dusting.
They claim that Dolly Madison protects the Rose Garden.
Oh, protects? Like, what does she do? Chase people off? Boo.
All I'm thinking of is like icing filled cakes. There's been ghosts seen of John Tyler haunting the Blue Room, proposing to Julia Gardner, his second wife.
Aw.
And they've actually said they've seen apparitions of him down on his knee presenting a ring to her.
That's kind of a nice ghostly haunting.
William Henry Harrison haunts the attic. He was actually the first president to die in the White House.
Oh, okay. And now he's stuck in the attic.
He's stuck in the attic, like top notch, I guess. Abigail Adams hung laundry in the East Room, and nowadays people can smell wet laundry and the scent of lavender. They've actually named it the Lavender Room.
They named the room the Lavender Room after a ghostly smell?
Yeah, because the
Wow.
smell of wet laundry and the scent of lavender.
Well, that's kind of fun.
Then wouldn't you call it the Lavender Room? They're running out of rooms. They got yellow, they got red. Gee.
Absolutely. I'd call it the Lavender Ghost Room.
They say that there's an unnamed British soldier who died during the War of 1812 that roams the White House grounds holding a torch.
That sounds kind of creepy.
Yeah. There's also the ghost of Anna Surratt banging on the doors of the White House because she was pleading with President Andrew Johnson, begging for a pardon for her mother, who was a Lincoln assassination conspirator.
Oh.
Yeah. Then, and this is interesting because this is, going relatively recent. Former First Lady Michelle Obama had gone visiting school children in 2009. And she told the school children that she and President Barack Obama sometimes heard strange noises in the hallways at night. Other times, some of the Obama family members felt like something was gnawing or chewing at their feet.
Lots of presidents have had dogs, so maybe it was someone's deceased dog from
And
before.
that's basically what one of the folklorists that was a part of this article I read basically stated, that she thinks it was one of the long dead White House pets.
That makes sense. Oh, that's so cute.
She didn't specifically say anything about President Lincoln, but she did hear, they did say that they hear strange noises and stuff. Jenna Bush Hager, who is the daughter of former President George W., she said her and her twin sister Barbara would hear 1920s piano music coming from the fireplace in their bedroom.
Oh, wow.
Because these were, teenage girls that were daughters of a president. So they lived in the White House. Ronald Reagan told stories of how his dog would bark frantically at the entrance of the Lincoln bedroom and would refuse to go inside.
That sounds like a hot spot.
Reagan's daughter and son-in-law also reported seeing apparitions of the room. They didn't specifically say that they thought they were apparitions of Lincoln, just that they saw apparitions in the room. I think you're right. I think Lincoln is probably the most predominant.
It would make sense since his wife was the one who brought in all the spiritualists and did so much calling to spirits and calling to those energies. I'm not surprised that a lot of the sightings are from them and from that time period. I really wonder what the proximity of the Red Room, where she did all the seances and spiritualist activities, where that is in relationship to Lincoln's old office, which is now called the Lincoln bedroom.
Right. And there is a bed in there that Mary Todd Lincoln bought, but they do not think that Lincoln ever slept in the bed.
He just worked in there as an office.
Correct. But that bed has been slept in by most presidents, just not necessarily Lincoln, even though it's in the Lincoln bedroom and bought by his actual wife.
And lots of famous people, apparently.
Yeah. Doing God knows what. Oh my God.
Right? Can you imagine staying overnight, let alone being a kid that grew up in the White House? How fun.
Right. I know, right? But imagine being the Bush kids and you're laying in bed hearing 1920s music coming from your damn fireplace. I'd be freaking.
I would too. And especially because I know that that whole place is riddled with secret entrances and secret passageways. And there are some secret passageways and secret hidey holes that they reserve just for the children of presidents. Like they don't even tell the presidents about them. They're just secrets that the children know about. So I wouldn't be surprised if they knew a lot of secrets about that house.
You know, I'm surprised that people get surprised that Lincoln's, they're like, of all the people, why Lincoln? Dude's got unfinished business, man.
Oh, yeah, big time.
He was assassinated in his prime when there was a lot of stuff going on with the Civil War.
A lot left to do.
That Lincoln bedroom used to be his office, so it's like the guy never stopped working, you know what I mean?
Makes complete sense. Plus, it's a place where a lot of things that people touched and used are still there. The bed that Mary Todd purchased is still in that room. And as we know, items of people's, especially ones that they're around or use or have associations with, hold on to that type of energy. So
right.
Makes a ton of sense. Plus, she did a lot of fucking around and finding out in that building.
Right. Seriously. Lady Bird Johnson reportedly felt Lincoln standing over her one night when she was watching a TV show about his death.
Ooh.
That would freak me out. Oh my God.
Eerie.
That would totally freak me out. Even Eleanor Roosevelt said she's seen Lincoln. Like I said, Churchill, FDR, like these aren't just Susie Smith from down the street who's a little cuckoo, thinks she saw Lincoln. Presidents of our country.
Yeah, respected heads of state and people, you would think would have a cool head or, a discerning nature. They'll be paying attention to things, not prone to flights of fancy.
Right. And I mean, Laura Bush kind of tried to poo-poo her daughters off publicly on the Today Show and stuff. But when push comes to shove, it's not just the odd folk that talk about these things. Like you said, well-respected, influential, socialite, aristocratic community members. Bitches are seeing Lincoln. So it's not just us, man.
Right. Michelle Obama herself, I very much respect her. I think she's...
Right.
Lincoln. She's saying she's seeing these things and hearing these things. So, it's not just people from history where you're hearing about it. This is a contemporary person who says that she had these experiences. So that's kind of fun.
You don't hear a lot about it now, but back in the day, there were a lot of presidents involved in the Masonic Temple and in Masonry. If you look at the design of the White House and a lot of Washington, D.C. itself, the street patterns and stuff, a lot of Masonic imagery and all of that. A lot of our founding fathers, Declaration of Independence, that whole thing, all Mason related. Like they brought this on themselves.
Yeah, there's magical energy built into the placement of the streets themselves. Yeah, it's not surprising.
I really think it would be cool to go to the White House. And at the very least, okay, if you're not going to let me do an overnight candlelight tour, great. I understand. Whatever. Let me sleep in the Lincoln bedroom. I just want to sleep in the Lincoln bedroom because that's where it's at, man.
Well, I want to sleep in the Lincoln bedroom and bring a Ouija board.
Oh my God, yes.
I think probably the best we're going to be able to do is to sneak in like a miniature Ouija board.
Do you think the Secret Service agents would get on the Ouija board with us?
Absolutely. Of course they would.
They seem like fuck around and find out kind of people.
They do. They'd be hanging out. They've got the best weed too. And they would probably the best stories. I'm sure they've seen some shit.
And to be honest with you, probably half the Secret Service there has seen Lincoln.
Oh, I'm sure they all have. I bet they all have. It sounds like
they're just not allowed
all
to
the
tell
time.
us.
No.
If the Secret Service is listening to our podcast today,
email us at thestonedwitcheshour at
Because we want to hear about
gmail.com
your Lincoln experiences.
because we know you've had them.
So it does seem like there are some random other ghosts there. Like I said, beating on the door, the dog, you got the rose garden under lock and key. But I think the prevailing stories, especially from former presidents, first ladies, and presidential family members, all surround Lincoln.
I have to say the one that intrigues me and scares me the most is the one about the teenage boy that no one knows where he came from. I half wonder if Mary Todd and all these spiritualists trying to call to her son, her teenage son,
brought other teenage boys.
Yeah, who or what did they pull in and trap in that house? And I kind of feel bad for him. Maybe he's someone.
Or is it just one of her other sons and people just don't realize it? Because if she had 3 sons that died and they only specifically talk about Willie, it could be one of the other 2.
Yeah.
Well, if that's where old Abraham's hanging out.
Right? Maybe his kids are all hanging out there too and they just don't recognize him.
They're just like, hey, I'm going to go be with my dad ghost over here at the White House.
Right. But he definitely sounds angry. I mean, if they're calling him the Thing, then it sounds
That's
like an
not
angry
nice.
ghost. No.
Either that or I'm thinking Adams Family.
Maybe.
If anybody has any stories about, because I don't even know if the public tours, because like I said, when I went, I was probably like 14. I don't know if you get to tour the Lincoln's bedroom or not. I don't remember. Do you?
We didn't on our tour. Mm-mm.
I wanna know if anybody has any experiences out there.
I'm curious as well. Let us know your White House ghost stories.
There's obviously something going on. And because it's so huge, I mean, just imagine walking around that place alone at night.
Oh, that'd be so great with like an EVP recorder and some flashlights. And
there's got to be a president at some point that agrees to at least let a paranormal group come in.
Oh, yeah. A professional paranormal group? How great would that be?
A weekend, go over wherever you go, Camp David or whatever, and let us just come in and talk to Lincoln.
Maybe they could do it during that transition period, when one president is done and the next president that's being elected is coming in.
And we swoop in and do some ghost hunting in between.
Just a couple hours. Nobody's living there then. We could just kind of get in and get out. I don't see a problem with that.
Secret Service can use the Ouija board with us. Like
sure.
her.
Yeah. So Secret Service, hit us up, let us know. We just want to tag around with the professional ghost hunters while they go. That's all.
But yeah, so, the White House is it's got a storied history, as you can imagine, as we all know. I guess I didn't realize just how haunted it actually is. I guess you look at it as this like palatial residence that is just free of everything. And I was wrong because it sure as hell ain't free of Lincoln.
I love that.
There's one more piece to this that might answer your question about the 15-year-old boy.
Yeah.
And that is that the White House was kind of made by slave folk.
Yeah, by enslaved people. They did all that work.
So all these enslaved folk were building the White House, and as was common at the time, slaves were put into work as young children. So there was a theory that the boy was actually potentially a slave laborer who may have died during construction.
Oh, that's so sad. That would definitely explain the anger.
Because there are, some of the first families that lived in there also had some experiences.
That's true. Even before Mary Todd did all the spiritualist stuff there, people that just you said that originally lived there had some experiences as well.
Right. And, there was ghosts in the White House, long before Lincoln. And those are kind of being traced back to potential enslaved folk that were tasked with creating the property, creating the building, building the building. Maybe some of the first, they had people that had to actually dig. I think I read like 3 stories deep. They had to dig down. The White House doesn't just have a traditional 1-level basement. It's got like a 3-level basement. They had enslaved folks dig that down. And, you figure 3 stories is like 35, 40 feet.
That's wow.
So there is some theory that some of the activity that they can't necessarily pin on either Lincoln or someone specific, such as the Thing, could be the spirits of enslaved folk.
That would make sense. Again, suffering and that type of expenditure of energy really can make a negative imprint on a place.
And that could be more of some of the spirits that are kind of on that repetitive reel,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to Mary Todd telling people that they haven't dusted properly.
Right? How rude. I mean, if you're going to be a ghost and you're going to wander around a place as interesting as the White House, why the fuck bother with dust? I mean, really, how petty do you have to be?
Because she's a perfectionist first lady, duh.
I guess so.
But so yeah, I mean the White House is just like a treasure trove of shit,
That
truly.
is a lot of ghosts. That's a lot of ghosts. Well, I don't know if I can compete with the number of ghosts, but I'm only talking about one ghost. But this one ghost actually solved her own murder,
All right, now that's impressive, I've got to say.
right? So this actually happened in 1977. So we're going to go to Chicago, Illinois in February of 1977, February 21st to be exact.
Wow, I feel like that was just happened. We just had an anniversary of this.
This whole story, sometimes we get into these stories and you start to see little synchronicities or little weird tidbits start popping up. This was one of those stories. I had gotten a tip about a woman who had solved her own murder as a ghost, and I started looking into it. And her name was Elva. And for some reason, I thought that we had talked about her in a previous episode. But while researching Elva, I found this other woman named Teresita Baza. And so I started researching her instead, just in case we had already talked about Elva. Well, then I realized that this case happened in Chicago, Illinois, where we've been desperately afraid of the last few episodes, and also happened in February, right now, same time period that we're recording. It has one more coincidence that I'll get to at the end, so 3 in total.
Oh man, why in threes?
Right? So funny. All right, so this story is about Teresita Baza, and we're going to go to Monday, February 21st, 1977. So at about 8:40 p.m. that evening at an apartment building in downtown Chicago, the Chicago Fire Department got called by the building's janitor. When they get to the apartment building, everybody has been evacuated. One of the apartments has black smoke rolling out of the windows.
Probably the source of the fire, I would imagine.
You are exactly right. When the police get into the apartment, they see that it has been completely trashed. And the source of the fire is a burning mattress in the bedroom.
Yeah.
When they pull the mattress away and get the fire put out, they discover a smoldering pile of clothes underneath it. And under the smoldering pile of clothing was a woman's naked body, and she had been stabbed in the heart.
Oh, that's shitty.
The woman's name was Teresita Baza, a 47-year-old woman. She had been born in the Philippines as an only child and graduated college in Manila and moved to the United States, where she got a master's degree in music from Indiana University. And as many of us do, she did not work in the field where she got her degree.
Shocking.
Right? She actually worked in the medical field as a respiratory therapist. So she was employed at Edgewater Hospital and by all accounts was very happy, lived a great life, and she did give music lessons on the side, so music was still a part of her life. She was actually back in school at that time, going for her doctoral thesis in music at Loyola University. So she, by all accounts, had a great life, a lot of friends, had a great time. That Monday started out as a normal day for her. She worked her normal shift at the hospital and then went home and spoke to a friend that evening. Her friend Ruth Loeb recounts that she had spoken to Teresita at about 7:30. And Teresita at that time said she had to get off the phone because she was expecting a man to come over. And Ruth didn't ask for any details, and that was the last time she spoke to her friend.
Well, obviously the man must have did it.
Right, but nobody had a name at that point. They couldn't ascertain if anything had been stolen from the apartment, and they at first thought that maybe Teresita had been sexually assaulted. A coroner's report said that she hadn't been, but I'm going to go on record right now and say that's probably bullshit. I'm guessing they probably said she hadn't been sexually assaulted because they found no semen and they found no bruises. But honestly, you and I both know that someone can be sexually assaulted without that.
Right.
And she was found naked. Nothing seemed to have been stolen from the apartment. They found her wallet there. Her keys were there. Nothing seemed to be gone, although the apartment was trashed. So they were quite surprised. The autopsy said no sign of sexual assault, and they had no leads. The only thing they had was the phone call with Ruth Loeb, and there was a note on a table that said, Remember to get theater tickets for AS. But none of her friends knew who AS was. And so the case kind of went cold for a couple months. They interviewed her boyfriend, they interviewed her friends, they had no leads.
Back then, there was no security cameras.
No security cameras, no DNA, no way to check any of that. There was a detective on the case named Joe Stachula, and he was determined to find out who had murdered Teresita. The case had kind of gone cold until July of 1977. So that July, Joe got into work one morning and found a note telling him to call the Evanston Police Department regarding the Bassa murder. He, of course, rang them right up to try and get this information. So an officer at the Evanston Police Department said that a man named Dr. Jose Chua, a doctor who lived in Skokie, which is a suburb of Chicago, had come to them with some information. So Stachula and his partner, Detective Lee Eplin, went to the doctor's home to ask him what he knew, what information he might possibly have about the Teresita Bassa case. When they got to the home, Dr. Chua seemed reluctant to talk about what he knew and kind of embarrassed. He asked the detectives if they believed in the supernatural, if they believed in ghosts.
What?
Dr. Chua says that his wife Remy, claimed to have been possessed by Teresita Bassa's ghost. She also worked at the hospital where Teresita had worked at as a respiratory therapist, and they knew each other a little bit. They weren't friends, but they knew of each other. Remy claims that one day after a long shift, she'd gone into the break room to take a nap and had disturbing dreams where Teresita was trying to talk to her. And she says when she woke up, she saw Teresita standing next to her, and she told her that she needed help and that she knew who had killed her and that she wanted Remy to help her. And then she disappeared.
Oh, wow.
Remy thought that she had been sleeping, and so she just kind of forgot about it. But the dreams kept getting worse and worse. She told her husband about it, and they decided that it was just dreams and they weren't going to do anything about it until one day Remy was sleeping at home and she woke up suddenly. And her husband, Joe, was right there when Remy started talking in a different voice. Not only was she talking in a different voice, but she was speaking Tagalog, which was a language that she knew a little bit, but wasn't fluent in.
What language is that?
That's a language from the Philippines where Teresita Bassa was, and Teresita knew Tagalog.
Was this a case essentially of she knew that this was basically someone who would be receptive? Like you reach out to someone who's going to listen?
Quite possibly. It very much seems that way. While she's speaking to her husband in this strange voice speaking Tagalog, she said she was Teresita Bassa and asked him for his help.
Oh, wow.
She also said that she was murdered by a man named Alan Showery and that she wanted Dr. Chua to go to the police and tell them. During this time talking to Dr. Chua, she said that she had asked Alan Showery, a man who also worked at the hospital, I believe as an orderly, to help her come fix her television, and that he came and killed her instead and stole some of her jewelry.
Oh, shit. Yeah, but didn't they say they didn't see anything missing?
They did, but, it was just a couple pieces of jewelry. How would the police know?
Right.
She asked Dr. Chua to go to the police, and then the voice was gone, and his wife woke up, having no memory of what happened. They decided not to call the police. They thought maybe this was just some weird dream effect or some type of sleep talking. It happened again a week later.
Oh, shit. That's when just pick up the damn phone and call the cops and be done with it.
Same voice, different from his wife, speaking this different language. And this time she's angry and she wants the doctor to go to the police. She says she has proof. She gave Dr. Chua the names and phone numbers of family members and said that they would recognize her jewelry that Alan had taken from her and said, go to the police with this information. So now he and his wife decide, okay,
feel like they have something tangible to say.
This is an awful lot of very specific information. Let's just go to the police. That's when the detective got the information and showed up at Dr. Chua's house. After getting all of this information, the detective believed him. He says that in all of his experience as a detective, he's gotten very, very good when witnesses are telling him stories. He says he can tell pretty much whether they believe it or whether they're lying.
Right.
He could tell that this doctor believed it. And the name Alan Showery matched the initials on the letter that they had not released.
AS.
So they figured this is at least enough information to kind of go on. So they went to Alan Showery's apartment and found his girlfriend there, his very pregnant girlfriend, and asked her a few questions. And she said that Alan had given her some jewelry and said that it was a belated Christmas present. So they called the family members and had them come in. And they also asked the girlfriend to come into the station with all of her jewelry, not just the pieces that she said Alan had given her recently. So she comes in with all her jewelry and spreads it all out. And these family members of Teresita Bass's look at the jewelry and say, yes, this ring and that necklace. And they picked out several pieces that had belonged to Teresita.
Oh, wow.
Those matched exactly the pieces that the girlfriend says that Alan had given her just recently. They used this information to bring Alan in. He initially denied all of it. Once they confronted him with this other information, he then admitted that he'd gone to her apartment, but said that he left because he didn't have enough tools to do what she needed. And he said he never went back. So the detectives now, although he says, he wasn't there, they're pretty sure based on this information that they've got the right guy. So even though they kind of originally got the tip from a ghost, they continue to follow up on researching these clues into Alan Showery. So after confronted with the jewelry information, he finally confessed to the murder. He said that after he left the apartment, they had had a fight, and he decided he was going to go back and rob her because he needed rent money. He came back with the tools, and as soon as she turned around, he killed her. He said he had stripped off her clothes to make it look like a sexual assault, and then piled more clothing on top of her and started it on fire, then put the mattress on top of that and lit it on fire to try and cover up his crime.
So you were wrong. She was not sexually assaulted.
Right. I don't know. His history, he has a history of sexual assault and robbery. So I don't know. I think he was just trying to not get those charges, but maybe not.
Doesn't look too good with a pregnant girlfriend.
No. He did ransack the house, the apartment, looking for money and didn't find enough. And that's when he decided to take the jewelry to at least make it worth something. So the case went to trial on January 21st, 1979, but it ended up in a hung jury. I mean, can you imagine being presented with the information that it was a ghost that tipped the detectives off?
But they still got the right guy because he confessed. So why was that relevant?
He then recanted the confession and said that he was pressured by police officers. And the only reason that he confessed is because they said they were going to charge his pregnant girlfriend because she had the stolen merchandise.
Oh.
But then again, after the hung jury, this is another weird part. After the hung jury, he was awaiting retrial. He was probably going to get off. He then went into court voluntarily against the wishes of his attorney. He was on the verge of being a free man. This is February 20th, 1979. He's going to be a free man. A mistrial had been declared. 2 days later, February 22nd, he shows up in front of Judge Barbaro, who tried over the case, and against his attorney's advice, again pled guilty and confessed to the murder of Teresita.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a back and forth. So he confessed. Then he said it was a coerced confession. The jury was hung. They were going to have a mistrial. And then against his own attorney's advice, he confessed again. I don't know. Maybe the ghost visited him in jail.
I was going to say maybe his girlfriend put the pressure on him.
It's possible. He was sentenced to 14 years in prison, an additional 4 years for arson and burglary. And he went to Stateville Penitentiary, but he was paroled in July of 1983 after serving just a little over 4 years.
Oh, wow. That's fucked up.
I kind of was looking to see what had happened to him because he should be roughly 77 right now. And interestingly enough, he bounced around Chicago area and then to New York City and then ended up in Colton, California, and now resides in Riverside, California.
Nuh-uh.
Yes. As far as I can tell, he is still currently alive and living in Riverside, California.
Wow.
Now, I have to give you a little more information here because some people say that it's possible that Remy, Dr. Chua's wife, maybe had overheard a few things. You know, maybe this ghost story wasn't necessarily a ghost story. Maybe she had heard some things and this was the only way she knew how to get the information out safely. possibly. I don't know why she wouldn't just go to the police. Why
Yeah,
would
but
she?
what about the phone numbers and stuff? You don't just pull people's phone numbers out of your asshole and have them be accurate.
Right. And while she knew Teresita Basa, from all accounts, they weren't best friends.
Not the type of people who knows your family members' phone numbers.
Right, exactly. Now, another strike against Remy's testimony is that Remy had been fired that same day when she first said that she had seen the ghost of Teresita Basa. And she had actually blamed, I believe Alan Showery was part of the reason why she had gotten blamed. So there was a little bit of bad beef between the two of them.
Yeah, but if you know someone's a killer, you're not going to be their friend.
That's very true. That's very true. So I don't know. The jewelry's pretty damning. And the second confession, also pretty damning.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you don't just make up phone numbers and have them be accurate.
Exactly. And how would she know of the specific jewelry? And there's a lot of details that I don't think could be explained by hearing random rumors. And if so many rumors were flying around, why didn't these people come forward? Why didn't she come forward? Why make up an elaborate ghost story hoax that the police might not even listen to? So I don't know. Teresita Basa seems to have come back from beyond the grave to possess Remy Chua and solve her own murder when the police had been stumped and had no leads.
That's what happens when you're a woman and the fate of your destiny of your soul is in the hands of some guy. And you're like, move over, bitch. Let me just handle this myself.
Yeah, it's been 5 months. You haven't gotten anywhere. I gave you the initials.
Let me handle it.
I'll give you the full name.
Right.
So this was actually in court records.
Witness number 46, ghost number 12.
It's in actual court cases that this information came from a ghost and came from a possession.
That's
kind
funny.
Of interesting.
I gotta admit, that's funny.
Right? How cool is that? So yeah, so sometimes people can come back when it's important enough, I guess.
Apparently. Like I said, she was just pissed off that the men in her life and around her were just not getting shit done. And she's like, move over, hold my beer. I got my own murder to solve because you're obviously not doing it.
She had to bring her own justice. So good for her. Good for you, Teresita Basa. I'm sorry you had to get murdered, but I'm so glad you were able to solve it.
You know, this leads me to a question.
What's that, Chelle?
Did she have any sort of spiritual background? And the reason I ask that, you and I, being witchy type women, I could see both of us being like, you motherfucker, if you cannot solve this, I'm just going to haunt a motherfucker and figure out how to tell you how to do it for yourself, because obviously I have to do the work for you, even dead. Can't even rest dead, still got to do the work. So I could see someone like you or I being like, all right, we're going to haunt some people and get this shit done. Did she have any spirituality background that could potentially make us think that she knew enough to be able to reach out to someone who would listen?
I don't know. I haven't seen any of that, but I do know that she was born to a wealthy family. She was an only child. She obviously loved education. Before she moved to the US, she got her degree. Then while she was here, she was working on her doctoral degree. She was a respiratory therapist. So she was definitely someone who loved education and learning. And in the 70s, she was a single woman living in a fashionable apartment in Chicago. So, that's definitely a strong, powerful person. I mean, shit, you pretty much couldn't get your own credit card until a couple years before that at that time. So
without a man.
Without a man, she definitely was a force to be reckoned with, at least in some ways, to be a single woman with that many accomplishments at that time.
Because I'm just thinking, if I go down dirty, the first thing I'm doing is phoning a friend.
You better fucking come to my house. Tell me what the fuck happened so I can go curse that motherfucker.
Right?
Just from what I could find of her, she seemed like a very cool woman.
Nice. But I still think I beat you this week just with Lincoln.
Oh my gosh, you have so many ghosts. I just have the one. Mine is the crime solver. Yours is the spooky overabundance of paranormal activity. I love it.
Yours is smart enough to get her own shit done, and mine just won't stop working.
That's just wild. I don't think there's anywhere we can go for this one, but I think I'm still going to avoid Illinois because that place is spooky.
There's something about Illinois that's just getting creepier and creepier, and I never knew this. And like recently, I just feel like, yeah, let's avoid that state because no, Let me retract that. Let's go to Illinois and get the shit scared out of us. That's what we need to do.
That sounds good. So we will visit all of Illinois, and then we will go and decipher all the Masonic symbolism in DC and see if we can convince someone to let us do a flashlight overnight haunted tour of the White House. Someone's got to let us do it.
We've talked about the White House and some presidents enough that we're probably on some flagged list now. There's probably some low-life minimum wage Secret Service agent that's now tasked with listening to our podcast.
Oh, hey, CIA agent, who's assigned to us now.
So if you are from the CIA or the Secret Service and you've been tasked with listening to us because of how much we've mentioned the White House, please call your superiors. Let us get the breaking paranormal story. Just let us one night. It doesn't even have to be overnight. I'd be good with 6 hours. Wouldn't you be good with 6 hours?
Sure, give me 2. Hell.
Yeah. I just want to just be in the Lincoln bedroom and chat with Lincoln. So make that happen, because if you're sitting in here listening, we might as well get something out of it too. And I want to talk to Lincoln.
And to be honest, I'm totally going to smoke a joint on the roof.
I want to go with Dolly Madison in the Rose Garden. And then here's the thing. So we'll go smoke in the Rose Garden, and we're going to take a box of Dolly Madison cupcakes with us.
That should bring all the ghosts out.
And we are going to go pay homage to Dolly Madison by eating Dolly Madisons while getting high.
In the Lincoln bedroom.
I don't know if they'll let us smoke inside. It might be the Rose Garden.
Okay, let's smoke in the Rose Garden, and then we'll take the Dolly Madisons to the Lincoln bedroom.
Right. So yeah, CIA, we got a plan. Give us a ring.
Let us know. And if you've seen a ghost, email us.
And we promise we will not say who you are. You will be an unidentified inside source.
Yes, you'll be an unidentified CIA agent, CIA secret agent. We will tell no one. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Stoned Witches Hour. We hope you enjoyed our spooky, ghosty, high stories. And we will see you next week on Wednesday at 4:20 a.m. for episode 59 of the Stoned Witches Hour.
Stay high and spooky.
See you then.